Welcome to the AA Podcast, our little corner of the web where we are not afraid to discuss tough questions like,
when did nutrition, health, movement, and stress management become alternative medicine?
Where we embrace challenges in all aspects of life to become healthier and stronger versions of ourselves.
And where food and movement are the best kinds of medicine, and cooking meals at home is a revolutionary act. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the AA Podcast. This is Ashley Olson.
And I'm Andrea Crane.
We are excited to have another episode brought to you today. Still can't get over that we're in year 2. So those that have stuck around from the beginning,
Yes.
we are so grateful for you. And all of our new listeners, we are also super grateful for you.
Yes, and if you're new, go back. No cheating.
Yes. And Andrea, you had a shout out.
Oh, yes. So I just wanted to shout out my buddy Megan here in Idaho. She is listening, and we just wanted to thank her for listening. She's a new listener, and yeah, so we've got all kinds of friends on board. So
Yeah. And I
hello,
sent
Megan.
a link to a podcast to a client. She's like, "You podcast?" So maybe Carol will be listening as well. She has
Hey, Carol.
If she does listen to an episode, it'll be her very first podcast. So
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
yeah.
I love it.
Well, as always, we are going to start off our podcast with a Bible verse, and mine is coming from Proverbs 15:22, and it says, "Without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed."
I can attest to that. Thank you. Mine is John 16:33. I have said these things to you that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world.
Amen to that.
Mm-hmm. All right,
All right.
girl. So listen, I am stepping into a role here today that I am so ill prepared to follow Ashley into, but I'm going to do my best. So I will be asking the majority of the questions today because we are in the realm of meal prepping and all things client nutrition. So this is going to be a great and how timely too that we're like into fall, this is when families start to get busy with kid responsibilities and school activities and all of these things. And we're also starting to get into that time of the year where I think we cook more during this time of the year. Like we heat up the kitchens more, we cook more, more comfort food, that kind of thing, which I really think lends itself well to meal prepping. So I'm gonna start off this whole shebang with Ashley. What is meal prepping?
Well, cooking.
Right?
Actually,
I know.
cooking your meals at home. So meal
Yes.
prepping is literally prepping food for your week, your day, your
Mm-hmm.
month. I think you do
Yeah.
more of a monthly
Mhm.
type meal prep.
Yeah.
I do more weekly or kind of daily meal prep, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just basically planning. What's the saying? Failing to plan is planning to fail. And
Yep.
I truly believe that because the days that
Yeah, I do
I
too.
have either said, "Oh, I'll just meal prep tomorrow," and then that tomorrow comes, and then I'm starving, and then I'm
Right.
like raiding the pantry to figure out what I can eat that is
Yeah.
somewhat
Mm-hmm.
balanced, just to hold me over so I can meal prep. Um,
Yeah.
so, those are days that I'm like, "You know what? If I would have planned a little bit better and had some things on hand, then I wouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
been in this predicament." So, it's basically setting yourself up for more success.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you. I totally agree with that. And what our listeners will find out if they don't already know I'm sure they already know, is I'm a little bit of a squirrel brain. Like I'm all over the place. I find it very hard to stay on one line of thinking. And Ashley is much more methodical and able to. She's much more organized than I am, and so all of that to say, like, she has her way that she meal preps, and I have my way that I meal prep, and everyone in between. There's a place for you in meal prepping, and this can be done regardless of your personality, your proclivities with food. Like, it can be done. So yeah, we'll
Yeah.
get into all of that.
What would you say? How would you define your meal prepping?
Oh my gosh, it's chaos. It's just absolute chaos. It's like, for instance, we'll get a cow, like a half of a cow at a time, right? And so I thrive on I need change. I don't like big change, but I need constant variety. That's what I need. I need constant variety. And so, and we'll talk a little bit about the fallacy of variety as well as we get a little further on into this, but I crave it. It's very difficult for me to eat the same things over and over and over and over again. I've gotten better at this. But I also I love to cook. I love to cook with lots of different flavors and spices and, flavor profiles and things like that, combinations. So I really thrive on variety. And so oh my gosh, like I'll just go to the freezer and pick out some weird cut of beef that we got with a cow and just start looking through recipes. Like that's a relaxing event for me at the end
Mhm.
of the day. After I've worked all day and just kind of looking to wind down, then I'll go get some weird cut of meat that I need to do something with, and I'll start looking through recipes, and then I'll find something and I will cook it all up. Either that night or the next day, and that's a lot of my meal prep.
Yeah. Which, if you're a mom on the go, you're like,
Mhm.
that sounds like my worst nightmare right now.
Yeah,
um,
yes,
so
exactly. It
we're gonna
depends on
talk
where you are in
about like
life
ways
too.
that you can still make your food taste
Mhm.
amazing and it
Mhm.
not take you all night,
Right.
or even all day to meal prep. So,
Right.
yeah.
So let's see. I wanted to so I am so bad at host duties, Ashley. I'm so bad at this.
I'm
So
like just sitting over here like do, 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 do.
I know this is just like way
Because
out of my depth.
if
Way out of my
you can't see us seeing each other,
Oh
but
my
she obviously
gosh.
was not paying attention.
No, I'm like totally out in left field. Like, yeah, just
She's
waiting for
probably
something
thinking,
to happen.
"Oh, what weird meat do I have in my freezer I can cook
I
tonight?"
I was just thinking about the oxtail I have out there. What am I gonna do with that? Oh my gosh, squirrel. Yeah. So okay, I'm back. I'm back. All right. I don't know how you do this every week. Okay. So Ashley, introduce us to a basic spice profile. So first of all, I want you to explain to the audience, like, what is the point of having spices? There's a lot of people out there, especially in the generation coming up, that they didn't really learn how to cook, and I didn't learn how to cook. Like that was not something that was ever taught to me. And
Yeah.
so what do spices have to do with meal prep, especially for people that don't know how to use them and what they're good for and all of that?
Well, I'll also say I didn't really grow up knowing how to cook, and that was no fault of my mother. She
Mhm.
definitely tried, and that was just not something I was
Oh,
interested
interesting.
in.
Huh.
Also, I had a very bland and very American diet, standard American diet, a very
Mm.
sad diet when I was
Mhm.
little. So I honestly didn't start knowing how to cook until I was married because
Uh,
poor
yeah.
Christian was like, "We're not eating spaghetti and sausage the rest of our lives. And I am not eating crockpot chicken and black beans the rest of my life."
Mhm.
So I had to learn real quick. And thankfully, he was much better and could teach me. But spices, I mean, they can they can I mean, think about when you go to a restaurant and why something tastes good. It's typically because they are combining some amazing spices to create this,
Yeah,
like you were saying, flavor profile.
right.
And some people get hung up on that and like, I don't know how to mix spices. Like, what do I use? So literally, and me and Andrea agree on this, like these are these basic spices that you should definitely have on your counter or in your kitchen.
Uh-huh.
Salt,
Yep.
pepper,
Lots of salt. Mhm.
garlic powder, onion
Yep.
powder,
Mhm.
paprika, cumin, chili powder, oregano, thyme.
Yep.
What's another one that I throw in there? I'll
Uh,
do
you
what else do I do? What do you
want me
do?
to tell you a trick while you're thinking?
Yeah.
So every time, every time a recipe calls for cumin,
Yeah.
I will add an equal amount of ground coriander, always.
Ooh.
And it just brightens everything up. And it adds this kind of, I don't know what. It's just like this bright flavor. But yeah, I love coriander, ground coriander.
All
And
right.
just add it one for one anytime a dish calls for cumin.
All right. I will have to buy some because I don't think I actually have some.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I so the other thing that I always
Rosemary.
keep. Oh, rosemary. Yes. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
I've been putting rosemary on my sourdough bread when I cook it. It is
Oh,
delightful.
yeah. Yeah.
So like with salts, you can get hung up on, okay, which kind of salt is best
Mhm.
for me. If you are just
Yeah.
starting out, just freaking use salt. Like don't get hung
Thank
up on
you.
what kind.
Yeah.
But if you want to use better salts that have maybe some more mineral profile, then you could look at like a Himalayan salt or a sea salt. Um, what other salt do you like? I know Himalayan
There's
salt has
gray
gotten like some
salt.
flack lately.
Yeah, I don't care. I still use
Yeah,
it. I
I
still use
still
the
love
gray
it.
salt.
Yeah.
I also really like there's something called real salt.
Okay.
That's a really good kind of salt. And it's weird, but certain salts are saltier than others. And like the really, really cheap, the super, super cheap salts that you get at like
Like the
Walmart, like the
kosher
big
salt.
bulk. Yeah, not even kosher. It's just like the giant bulk salt.
Yeah.
That sometimes you'll get it and it's like I keep adding and adding and adding and it just doesn't taste like anything.
Mhm.
So, which is crazy because the Bible talks about salt losing its saltiness. And how it's like not good for much of anything. And that is
Yeah.
true. That is true. Yeah. Salt without saltiness is just disgusting. So it doesn't add anything. But yeah, you can play around. I get truffle salt. I
Oh,
have
yeah.
flake salt for steaks. Like there's
Mhm.
lots of different kinds of salt, but like Ashley said, start with the basics. Just get regular old salt. And if you want like a super good all-purpose salt, get real salt.
Mhm.
REAL salt.
Okay. I'll have to look for
Mhm.
that one.
Mhm.
And then garlic and onion powder, they do so much for meats, especially.
Yeah.
I pretty much when I'm cooking my meat, I'm you could say efficient is a nice word. I'm lazy when I'm cooking most of my meats each week in the sense that I just do ground whatever.
Mhm.
So we've been on a ground bison kick the last couple weeks,
Mm.
which is amazing. So I'll just literally throw in some salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and call it good. Because
Yep.
that is so once you have just a nice quote unquote simple bland uh meat that you have in your fridge,
Mhm.
it can be so versatile to any type of dish that you may want to
Mhm.
cook in the future. So don't be afraid that you can't add more spice to it later. Like it doesn't need to be a taco meat, that you have
Right.
in your fridge.
Exactly.
Like it can be a taco meat
Mhm.
later on, but it doesn't
Yeah.
need to begin that way.
Right.
So yeah. So those are the main ones. Get salt,
Okay.
pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, paprika, cumin, chili powder, oregano, thyme, rosemary, ground coriander.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I love that. So so how do you determine then how to pair different, so you've talked about your basic four, and I agree. I use those are my basic four. I season every single cut of meat, or every single ground meat that I cook
Mhm.
with salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, period.
Yep. Mhm.
And then you can add from there. But how do you decide what to add on different types of meat, like chicken, beef, fish, or
So
veggies?
say like I'm having a more Italian dish, then I might add
Mhm.
a little bit more uh kind of an Italian flavor profile. And
Uh-huh.
that could either be so like say I'm doing some ground bison with it's probably not totally Italian, but maybe I just want a little bit more of a flair. Ground bison with some like pasta noodles, then I might, when
Mhm.
I'm done cooking my noodles, I might even sprinkle that with like a blend of an Italian seasoning. Um,
Mhm.
or um, I could even just sprinkle it on top of the meat. Like it'll take on that.
Yeah.
You could also add it to the sauce if you're going to use a pasta sauce. Um, those are
Yeah.
just some really simple ways to change up the taste profile,
Mhm.
even though you've already cooked all of your meats.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another thing, that I feel like people need to know is that you can add flavor profiles later on. And we've kind of alluded to that in the last few minutes, but that is absolutely, so you get a basic seasoning profile with the salt and pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and then you can add, like, just even if you have seasoned ground beef in your refrigerator in a glass bowl, and it's just waiting there for whatever you want to do with it. So if you
Mhm.
decide that you want to turn that into, like Ashley said, something Italian, then just sprinkle some basil, and maybe put a bay leaf in there, and
Mhm.
put some oregano, like a good amount of oregano, maybe some marjoram or whatever else you have that,
Mhm.
like, just smell it, see if it smells Italian to you. If it smells
Yeah.
Italian, dump it in there. um and so then reheat it with
Yeah.
those new spices, and it will take that on and become what you need it to be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm,
I think that's one thing that, when I was first starting to meal prep, I felt like I had to make, like, if I was going to make a ground beef, then it has to be like a taco meat then. So we're having tacos the
mm,
rest of the week.
mhm,
And
mhm.
that really got old fast because,
Right.
I mean, I love Mexican food. I could have it literally every day.
Mhm.
Um, but, you know, some say I wanted to have, like I said, an Italian dish, then it
Yeah.
was kind of stuck. So
Yeah.
this kind of helps you be a little bit more unstuck.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of versatility there. And so talk a little bit about, so Ashley is kind of the Mexican food guru. She's the go-to for all things black beans, chicken, Mexican steak, Mexican beef. So how do you use things other than spices? Like the sprinkle out onto something spices. How do you use other things to create and to like enhance the depth of a flavor profile?
hmm I love just using a good old jar of salsa.
Ah, great.
So just a nice red salsa, green salsa,
Mhm.
tomatillo.
Mhm.
I love green chili. I will add that pretty
Uh-huh.
much to any dish. So, something that's so easy is you can cook up your meat. We've pretty much primarily just been talking about cooking up your meat with these spices, but don't forget, like, you also need to, we're going to get into creating a balanced plate, but um
Mhm.
what kind of starches do you want? I've been on those little medley potato kicks lately,
Ooh,
so I'll
yum.
boil those up, and
Mhm.
so I'll boil them up until you can stick a fork in them, probably even a little bit softer, because then I transfer them, I drain them, and then I transfer them to my cast iron skillet, and I heat it up pretty high, and then I use the end of a glass cup and smash them,
Yeah. That's
and
great.
I and then I crisp them on either side, and You can add whatever flavoring to that too. I love adding minced garlic to things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially, I mean, that's so versatile. It could be Mexican, Italian, American, whatever you want. But it
Mhm.
just kind of helps add some flavor profile to that. And then I got a couple weeks ago at the farmer's market, I got some fresh poblanos and um, green or hatch chilies,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I added the hatch chilies to my potatoes.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So these are all things that aren't necessarily increasing the caloric intake, and we're going to get into that too.
Mhm.
These are all things that keep what you're cooking, what you're cooking. Like it hasn't
Mhm.
changed very much. So hot sauces, like if you like a little bit of a spice, like go explore the hot sauce aisle. I mean, there is
Agreed.
a plethora of
Mhm.
options there, and they can literally change everything with
Oh,
just a sprinkle.
completely. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah, no,
If
I
you like,
totally agree.
yeah, yeah, and if you like mustard, which I don't, but mustard
You're
can
crazy. Mhm.
change the profile of things as well. I do.
Yeah.
I will have maybe a little bit of a mustard based sauce sometimes, but it can't have a mustard presence. I just can't do it. I know. Uh,
Well, you're picky
but
tail. It's fine.
you do you. If you like it,
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with it. I just don't like
Right.
it. The other thing that I forgot to mention too, and another thing that I'll do with my ground beef is before I add the meat to my cast iron or to
Uh-huh.
your pan, um, I will throw in some purple onions or some
Oh,
white
yeah.
onions
Mhm.
and throw those in, saute them a little bit, get them a little bit of clear, and then I'll throw my meat in, and that's
Yeah.
also very good. So another
Yeah.
way that you can, and we're talking about ground beef and ground meats mostly, but the same applies to like your chicken thighs, your chicken breasts, steaks. We're very simple in those seasonings as well. Like it's salt,
Mhm.
pepper. On our steaks, it's salt and pepper. That's
Yeah.
all we do. And then for chicken, I might do a blend of what we already mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I remember you cooking some really amazing steaks here at my house and then promptly turning around to watch Ashley feed these beautiful steaks to the dogs. Like,
Feed a
yeah.
whole
Anyway,
steak.
it was
Also, the
significant
dogs were
what
wanting to
you
eat
gave those
me, so
dogs. I know. Well, that's true.
I I was trying to
She's
win
trying to
them
bribe
over.
them. Okay. Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. They do want to eat you. So, okay. Anyway, yeah, no, I'm still scarred by that encounter. Watching my grass-fed steak go to the dogs. Okay. So, let's see. Can you so in terms of you hit on this just a little bit, um, but what are some time-saving tips or maybe just some tips on how to cook things? Like, what are our options for cooking things? Like, I've got a stove, I've got a crock pot, I've got the oven, I've got a grill. Like, everybody is probably out there thinking about the things that they have to cook on. And I think
Mhm.
probably everyone has at least an oven or a toaster oven.
Yeah.
Um, everyone probably has a cooktop, right? Like a stove cooktop.
Mhm.
Probably most people have a crock pot or a slow cooker. I would think most people have an instant pot, those kinds of things. So yeah, what are your best tips on that?
I actually do not have an Instapot, but I do
What?
love my crock pot. Yeah.
How can you not have an instant pot?
I don't think I would use it as much as you do.
Oh my gosh, you're
I
crazy.
know. Everybody
Okay.
says that, but I have
Yeah.
not been convinced yet.
Okay. Okay.
But, really, there's not a massive difference between the Instapot and a crock pot in the sense of, like, obviously, the crock pot takes longer, but the one thing I love about the crock pot is I will throw, actually, I did this a couple weeks ago. I threw my chicken thighs that I really needed to get cooked in the crock pot. I threw some hatch green chilies in there because I needed to use those
Yeah.
up, and then I did my salt, pepper, onion, garlic powder. I think that was it, and I stuck it on in the morning, and it was
Uh-huh.
ready. I actually stuck it on high for 4.5, 5 hours, and it was completely shreddable and delicious. So you
Yeah.
could, I know you could do something similar in the Instapot. I haven't used one, so it's basically like a high pressured crock pot, I think. Would you say?
Yeah. Yeah, I would. Now I want to talk about chicken thighs here because I have ways that I cook them. You mentioned cooking them in the crock pot. Do you do anything to the chicken thighs before you cook them? Do you cook bone-in chicken thighs? Like
Oh,
what
bone
do
out.
you do?
Yeah, they're boneless chicken thighs, and then I don't do anything to them. I don't trim them. I don't do anything.
Okay. I will say I trim them a little bit. Um, they're usually pretty cheap cuts of meat. I get chicken thighs from Costco generally, like on, a big tray. And then I will trim them up a bit more before I cook them. And then I'll cook them I'll bake them in the
Oh
oven.
yeah, you can
Hmm.
totally bake them.
Yeah.
I'll throw them on the grill sometimes.
Oh, they're
I love
fantastic grilled.
what I do love to do is I'll marinate them sometimes in a baggie, or a glass container if you want, and do a little bit of olive oil and mostly water with some type of Mexican like blend, and then I'll just let that marinate for like
Yeah.
overnight and then throw them on the grill, and they're super good. You could also throw them in the cast iron. You can chop them up into little cubes and throw them
Yeah.
in the skillet to cook faster if you needed something really
Hmm.
fast. So yeah, there's
Yeah.
plenty of options there. Another option that is another time saver because you can cook it all together is sheet pans. So
Hmm.
throwing like a whole dinner in on a sheet pan
Hmm.
and doing like your veggie, your starch, and then your protein, and it's just right there, ready. So,
Yeah.
the
No, I
other thing
I
that
like the
I've
sheet
done is
pan
I
thing.
throw them in the air fryer too.
Oh, I've not done that before.
Yeah, super good.
What?
Makes them a little
Huh.
crispy,
Uh-huh.
um, and really juicy.
Wow, I'm gonna have to do that.
Yeah,
Um,
and they're super fast.
huh. Oh, speaking of air fryer, I just want to throw this out there. So, a lot of times at the grocery stores, they will have really great deals on bags of chicken wings.
Oh yeah,
And so I really, really love making chicken wings. If you've got kids in your family, especially if you have teenage boys, they can put away some chicken wings. So
which is great
that's a
for them because they can
yeah,
they can have the extra fat calories.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And yeah, they're so easy to cook in the air fryer. Now you can't make a million at a time, right? But you can kind of make them in batches, and by the time they get done eating one, you can just keep shoveling them into their faces.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a great way to do that. And also, I feel like people kind of forget about things other than chicken breast, right? Like wings
yeah,
and thighs are really great options for
for
cooking
sure.
chicken. So it's not just, your standard, I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
not a
I'm
I'm not a
actually
huge
not a
fan.
fan of chicken breast. I know
Me
a
neither.
friend of mine did say like if you buy a like actual farm raised like basically
Mhm.
fresh chicken, those
Yes,
are
it's different.
amazing, but also you're probably spending a ton of money on it. Um
Yeah. Yeah, that's
so
true.
I also buy my chicken thighs at Costco.
Mhm.
So yeah. Uh, One thing that you can also use if you're cooking up some rice, use a rice cooker. I don't have a rice cooker. I just throw
I
it
don't
on the
either.
oven and it's super
Mhm.
easy. Again, the potatoes are super easy. You can air fry those too. You can put them on the sheet pan I mean, there's
Mm,
potatoes are a very underrated meal prepping
yeah,
item,
agreed.
especially those medley potatoes.
Mhm.
They you can have so much volume and it will fill you up if you actually weighed out a serving of medley potatoes, like, it's probably more than what you actually think it is because, I've been cooking them up and I'll weigh them out, and it's like, "Wow, that's a lot of food."
Yeah.
So and
Mhm.
they put a lot of satiety in your meal, while not adding
Mhm.
necessarily a bunch of calories, so that's
Yeah. No,
another
and
thing.
one I'll throw out one thing that I like to do with potatoes. So if you have, I really like kind of almost like a Tex-Mex kind of smoky flavor profile. I really
Mm,
like with the hatch chilies, that kind of thing.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love those chipotle peppers in adobo sauce. You know, you can get them in the cans and they come with that. Aren't
Yes.
those amazing? So that
Oh
is
my
some of the
gosh.
most insane flavor that you can imagine. So
That's another thing
I
that you could
will
throw into the crock pot.
yeah. Mhm. Yeah, and then when you have extra ones left over because they're pretty spicy and sometimes you won't use a whole can. So what I do is I'll put whatever's left over on a sheet of wax paper on a cookie sheet and freeze it and then just stuff it in a bag. So
Oh,
you can take out like one pepper at a time later on.
that's a
Um,
really good idea.
but I will take potatoes and mash them and then you can add in like your milk or coconut milk or whatever you want to use to make those creamy, but then also mash in a bunch of that adobo sauce with the chopped up chipotle. And it is so good, and it's like a great layer on top of like if you have tortillas, or you can just make almost like a Mexican shepherd's pie, right? So you can start with a layer of potatoes and then you can put, you know, crock pot chicken or beef or whatever on top of that. Um, so yeah, anyway, potatoes, I totally agree. Underrated.
Totally.
And I live in
So
Idaho. So
I
yeah.
know you should have a plethora of them.
The land of. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, this is not like how to make a gourmet meal. This is literally how
Mhm.
to make your simple food items that you can prep ahead of time for the week taste good because I
Mhm.
love food. I love
Yeah,
food.
I do
And
too.
so I want it to taste good, but I also don't have the time, energy, or space to have cooking every night a whole entire
Mhm.
meal or,
Yeah.
I'm on the go a lot. So I need something that I can just whip together really fast. And so
Yeah, totally.
pre-prepping these main items, and we're going to go into more of this. We're going to end this episode and do a second part to this of where we talk about like actual meal planning and what that can look like and go into more detail on that. So, but yeah,
Mhm.
get these basic spices in your arsenal and
Mhm.
just have fun with them because you really can't mess up.
Yeah.
You could throw them all in and
Oh,
it would taste good.
you know one that's true. You know one that we forgot?
Hmm.
That is a non-negotiable for both Italian and for Mexican, and that is chili flakes.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
find chili flakes that you like. I make my own with hot peppers that I grow in the garden. But yeah, find Aleppo are my absolute 100% favorite. But, you know, just regular chili flakes are fine too. But find one that you like because they can add so much, like to pizza or cooked meats or, you know, just whatever.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I
Are you
think that's
gonna
gonna do it for today. I know. Look at me. Look at me. I'm closing down the show, Ashley. I'm closing her down. All right, folks, that's it. Um, I get you do it a lot more eloquently than I do.
Well,
Ashley,
I mean, we
following us
hope that
back.
you guys found this episode helpful,
Yeah.
and kind of eases any stress that you might have with when it comes to cooking because I know a lot of people, just like you said, weren't taught how to cook. And so,
Yeah.
what are some really simple ways that you can make something taste good? And
Right.
hopefully you can obviously always use Google ChatGPT. I know, I love to hate it,
Mhm.
or I hate to love it. Um,
Mhm.
is a very helpful resource. Like, just throw in, like, how do I cook chicken thighs? If you don't know how to do
Yeah,
it, like, Google how to cook chicken thighs, and Google
absolutely.
will throw out so many options. It'll tell you what
Yep,
temperature to cook them to so you do not get poisoned.
yep,
Um, and it's so easy. So
absolutely.
stop making food prepping so complicated.
Yeah, and I guess at the end of the day, like the one of the big reasons why I food prep and why I know Ashley food preps is because it keeps you from it keeps you from making poor decisions in a moment where you're weak, right? When
Yep.
you're hungry, when you are stressed, when you're busy, those are not the times to make food decisions. You want to have something ready. You want to have good, healthy options that are ready to roll so that it's a no-brainer. Like, this is what is made, this is what is in the fridge, so therefore this is what I'm eating.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, we hope that this was helpful, and we would love to hear from you if it was, or if you have some other suggestions that maybe we didn't mention or we forgot. And then the next episode, we're going to dive deeper into what a day or meal prepping could look like for you.
Mm.
And we also have a little special something that we will give you guys at the
Ashley's been
end.
busy, y'all. She's been busy, and you'll
So,
be real
yes.
happy.
Well, let's hope.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Well, we will catch
All
you
right,
guys on the
guys.
next episode.
Bye. The content provided in the AA podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The podcast is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The information and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not constitute medical advice.